Hello, everybody. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And I know I say this at every episode, but today we have a really unique person for you. As we researched who can we bring to the platform to provide you some new ideas, some new outlooks, and also some new strategies, we came across this guy. And as I started reading it, I was like, oh my God, that's me. And then I found out, oh my God, he lives in Australia, which is almost like Austria. So if you ever thought that we in Austria have kangaroos, whole different thing. It's that's where he is from. So I'm really excited for this conversation as soon as we start right after this. Hello again, I'm Christian. I'm the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur host, and I'm really excited to bring today's guest to you. Not only does he have a 25-year experience in the industry, he has been the chief operation officer for an amazing chicken place. He worked for an amazing burger place, and the conversation we just had was that he's really the description of what is a chef and what is an entrepreneur. And with the conversation we had with him, he's not only an amazing chef, an amazing operator, he's also an amazing human being. So with that, I want to welcome Josh. Chef Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.
So thanks for being here today. And we spoke a little bit. Tell our listeners the 5-minute cliff note, who you are, where you're calling in from, and what you currently do.
Okay, so calling in from Melbourne, in Australia. Obviously. Been in the industry for quite a long time now. Started in kitchens when I was, my first work experience was when I was 14, but started full-time in a kitchen when I was 16, worked in quite a famous fine dining restaurant in Australia, French restaurant. Was always fascinated by food. And then after I'd finished my apprenticeship, I needed a little bit of R&R, so I decided to head to Canada and actually teach snowboarding, of all things, and taught snowboarding there for a season, and then had to get back into the kitchen pretty quickly because I missed it, and then kind of rose the ranks pretty quickly there. I think from my experience, I sort of was able to do that, but still in Canada at the time where I was in Calgary, I felt it was quite limited to sort of the chefs that I was kind of reading about, and I had this huge pile of cookbooks, and one of the books that sort of stood out to me and the shows was The Fat Duck. So I applied to stage and was able to get a stage there and worked there for quite some time. And I think through that, I decided that I needed to probably start to make my way back after being overseas for quite some time. And then had an opportunity to open some cafes and restaurants with some guys. And that was quite an amazing experience. Sort of, they were two already successful people in their own rights. And that's where I started to how to get this passion about business and understanding the world outside of chef, of not just creating, pretty tasty things. So that was great. That sort of really set me up for, there is a sort of a life potentially outside cooking, because I was still getting pretty tired by then. But after a while, they were successful. We had an opportunity to sell them. We sold them. I felt like I was a bit of a crossroads of what I was going to do. I was actually going to, I'd spent some time in the States, and I was going to open up another business, but decided against it. And then my business partner at the time, from the business I'd sold, said that I should have a look at this business that he actually was one of the original founders for, called Grilled. And I kind of rubbished the idea because, my background, I was like, I don't want to work for a hamburger business. What do they know? And to be honest, when I first started, I didn't really enjoy it. But then I quickly fell in love with the process and systems and all the things I didn't really like about it. I thought to myself, well, I should change those one day. If I really am, as good as I think I am, maybe I can get in there and I can make a difference. So I quickly, I did quite a few different roles just because I was interested in different things, and I always sort of wanted to put in for my own development. So I was project manager, operations manager, opened up new restaurants, did major events for them. Anything that was an opportunity, I kind of took it And if I didn't know about it, I read about it, or I just worked doubly hard. Then I sort of, because of my background, the owner, Simon, always wanted me to sort of focus on the NPD side of the business. And I kind of moved into that role, and I was in that role all the way up until I sort of finished at the start of the year. So I was there for 10 years. And that last role, I really sort of evolved that part of the business for not just, for me, it comes quite naturally to thinking up a new idea, but how that works on a commercial scale for 170 plus restaurants, or working with our suppliers or farmers, or the strategy, or the nutrition. There's so many other different areas. I sort of dived right into that, and I really enjoyed that part of it. So I did that, and then I was turning 40, and I thought I need a new challenge. I've been here nearly 10 years, and decided to take on a role as a COO for a business here in Melbourne, and I had about the restaurants in New South Wales and Adelaide. But I had this sort of feeling that I wanted to be able to try and use everything I learned to help more people. I really enjoyed working with multiple different people and use the lessons I'd kind of learned over my career. And I didn't want to be on planes as much as well, because I've got young children, and decided that having had quite a few offers for some different bits of work over the years, and I decided to set this business up, and I've set it up really quickly. I thought I was setting this up to sort of give myself a bit more time, but it's kind of had the opposite effect. I think I'm working more than ever at the moment, but that's good. It's exciting, and it's work that I like doing. So that's kind of where I am now. It feels like a blur. It's gone very fast, but here I am. Now I'm talking on a podcast with you, so show with you. So, yeah.
No, I love the story, and it's not amazing how food is everywhere and what food can do. I mean, we spoke just before we got in live here on it's amazing. If you had told me many years ago that I want to do this with my career, as I went to my apprenticeship, I was like, yeah, out of your mind. I will never do a podcast. I never will do all of these things. It's amazing how food has just a way to kind of keep you in the industry. And so thanks for sharing a little bit of your background to our listeners. I hope you realize that a few things he said is just sets the foundation why we believe in the whole idea of the disruptive chef. Look on just where he started and all the different things he went through to come back to where he is. And by the way, I also have 4 kids chef. That seems to be the we had somebody on the other day who also had 4. So, but what I want to have a conversation about is, you are really good in developing and motivating those high performance teams. You're really good at identifying opportunity and profitability. But for me, I'm really interested in what is your leadership style? What are your strategies for achieving that business success, and especially in this fast-paced industry? And you said a few things that you want to kind of share a little bit of what you want to do and kind of give back to the industry. Maybe at the end of the show, we kind of let us peek a little bit behind the curtains to see what you're working on over the next 6 months to do that. So with that, I want to start from the beginning. Why did you pursue a career in the hospitality industry, and who forced you to get into this industry?
I don't think anyone. It was my dad was really passionate about food, and that really, and he loved France, and he loved cooking. There's a few cookbooks that he loved cooking out of, and I think that really, I became passionate about just through. And my mother was also, she's a great cook as well. And I think just through that passion, I just always wanted to be around that, and I wanted to do it all the time. And I think when other people were, the famous story in my family, when other kids were at 11 were wanting to go to, I don't know if you remember, laser tag parties.
I do.
Instead of a laser tag party, I wanted to go to this restaurant that was called Le Restaurant at the Sofitel in Melbourne. That was what I wanted to do for my birthday. So I was always kind of passionate about it, and it always just stemmed from there. And I always loved reading cookbooks, and I was kind of, just enthralled with kind of looking at all these kitchens in Europe, and, reading about Marco Pierre White and Gordon Ramsay and, all these amazing chefs in Australia. So I was just I was just always drawn to it. I just
I,
loved everything about it.
I love that. So you've been in multiple continents. You had the opportunity in Europe. You've been in Canada. We're not really sure what they do up there in Canada, but we know it exists. And now you're back in Australia. What do you see collectively? What is 1, 2, or 3 reasons what holds chefs back in scaling? Because I honestly believe as chefs, we're born as entrepreneurs to do what we doing today. And we know they all have transferable skills. What do you think is the number 1 or 2 reason what holds chefs back from really getting the most out of their career?
I think for me and the experience I've had recently with working with some different clients is I think, and there's so many better chefs out there than me at the creative or flavors, or I think it's really the thing for me is where they need to sort of remove themselves from is thinking more about the consumer. I think that's what sort of tends to sometimes gets forgotten a little bit.
Yeah.
And then also understanding the commercial side a bit. And that's not just understanding food costing, but it's understanding the different facets of what can bring a dish to the market or a successful product. So I think it's understanding the commercial side a bit more
Mhm.
and everything that goes into creating an amazing product. I think understanding the commercial side of things a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
more would definitely propel chefs forward.
I totally agree. And looking at some of the curriculums of the culinary schools in the marketplace, especially in Europe and the US, they don't teach that sense of entrepreneurship. They don't teach that there's more to it running a successful restaurant than making just a great dish. You know, the whole idea of HR and running a business and really understanding your numbers, I think that needs to take a stronger focus within that because it's not really taught. And the final thing for me is the whole idea of sales and marketing. It's not on the curriculum if you become a chef. Nobody really talks about it, but it's a critical part in being successful today. What is your take on where the current industry teaches chefs and what are some of the skills still needed in order to succeed in 24 and beyond?
Yeah, I don't remember learning any of that in culinary school. It was more about how to bone out a chicken, and making stocks and all that sort of stuff. And I was lucky that I have to admit, probably one of the things that if I reflect back on my career is that I've had great mentors along the
Hmm.
line. I think about my mentor that I had in Canada that told me to focus a bit more on leadership and how to get the most out of people instead of partying. And then when I had my business, I think when I had my first business, I was still maybe in that sort of grumpy kind of angry chef a little
Hmm.
bit. And I think my mentor, I saw him as someone who was successful, was able to get the most out of people, and did it in a way that just brought everyone together. And
Hmm.
I think having great mentors is something that if you can't get that out of the business you're currently working with, it's trying to seek those kind of people out. They're going to help bring you, up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I always think about my experience. I apprenticed under German master chef Karl Fürting. I will never forget him, the meanest person I ever met. And he always said, when I ask him a question, why do we do this? He says, don't ask dumb questions you don't want to hear the answers to. Okay, yes, chef. I'm not going to ask again. But it was just, you did it because you were told to do that. It was the tribal method. This is how he learned, and he's teaching you, and you teach everybody else. Can I get back a little bit and, what was the pivoting point for you where you knew, I don't want to be just a chef, I want to have my own business? Help our listeners understand a little bit what went through your mind and what made you give up the being a chef, not really giving up a chef, but starting your business. What was that process for you?
I think it was when I had the business, and when I had the first business, I was brought on as the food person for the
Hmm.
business, and I think there was just a lot of things that the way that it was successful from day one,
Hmm.
which I couldn't quite understand why, because I'd been overseas for quite some time, and I was like, why are people lining up for this? It doesn't make sense, but it was really people were loving it. But then there was a lot of the parts of the operations that I just didn't understand or I didn't agree with. And then I quickly evolved from being the chef to being, the operations manager and doing kind of a
Mhm.
lot more. And I think my mentor kind of seeing that side of me, my business partner, and I just sort of saw the click, and I was like, there is a life outside of maybe just being in the kitchen. There's other different areas of the business that I could kind of go into, with sort of leading people or running the front of house or understanding, accounting or the HR, as you said
Mhm.
before, the recruitment, all these different areas that make up a restaurant or a cafe or an events business. And I thought there was training and development. It was just all these different areas, and I
Mhm.
just sort of it kind of clicked for me a little bit that I think all those skills are transferable, and if I can kind of bundle them all together, it's just going to bring more value for me to the marketplace. So learn as much as I can about each of those areas, and whatever I do next is going to help me. So
Yeah, I love
yeah,
what you just said, because I'm a big believer in order for you to make more money, it's actually really simple. You just need to provide more value to the marketplace, because as you provide more value, your salary or your value and financial value will increase. Was there ever a point where you thought, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or why did I do that? Because there's inevitably, when you start something new, the universe has creative ways to kind of put some obstacles in your way. Was there ever a moment for you like that?
every day I have that moment. Luckily, I have an amazing wife who kind of grounds me, because, like starting this business, big, being on, it's like me being on the show. It's like, what am I doing on this show? I shouldn't be on this show. Uh, so I'm always thinking about that. So I think having people in your corner is always beneficial to
Hmm.
that. But I think things I feel like I shouldn't have done. I think even my most recent experience with the business was I was only in for 4 or 5 months. If I hadn't have been in that business, it wouldn't have made me think about doing this business that I've had. So I
Yeah.
never have any regrets. It's probably about I probably no, I generally don't have any regrets. It sounds really bad, but I think everything propels me to that next. Everything happens for a reason. Can
Yeah.
sound a bit woo woo, but
No,
I think everything kind of
totally believe that.
brings me towards the next step. And yeah.
Yeah. I honestly believe things what's supposed to happen are supposed to happen to make you who you are today. Because if certain things wouldn't happen to you, good or bad, it wouldn't have shaped you to the person you are today. So I honestly believe we are combined averages of the experiences and the obstacles and the things we had to overcome in order to do what we do today. And I absolutely believe in that. So as you were in that process of starting your own thing, and there's the doubts coming in, what would you tell somebody who is in that spot? What would be your word of wisdom or your advice to somebody on the cusp of starting their own business, because they meant for more? They know that they can reach a broader audience with doing something totally different.
Yeah, it was terrifying. It still is terrifying, having young children and mortgages. But I think it's something that if you really believe in it, I think it's just almost you just got to go for it. I was really scared. Now I'm not so scared, especially that I've got clients.
Mm-hmm.
I it's not even a regret. Maybe I wish I had have started a little bit sooner. And I think probably connecting with different individuals and finding out, finding your niche in the industry. There's it's such a big industry, and on my website, I have lots of different things that we can do, but it's interesting what people seem to be drawn to, especially towards myself and what they want
Mm-hmm.
out of me. So everyone, I think, has a niche if you're in hospitality, and it's really sort of harnessing that niche and really leaning into it as much as you can,
Mm-hmm.
and doing enough of your homework about what's out there. So I think it's you really got to go for it, back yourself, have a good support group around you that will be there for you when you're feeling a bit down.
You talk a lot about that, and I totally agree. You bring up your mentor a lot, and for me, I think what we as chefs need to be taught to do a little bit more is have conversations, because we creating conversation. That's became our slogan. And as we started having these conversations, especially through COVID, with people which came at the time and to our mastermind here, we started, multiple businesses with them, because I honestly believe we create in conversation. And you talk a lot about the mentor. Where did that come in? Because in the industry, we are not taught to reach out to a mentor. How did you find your first mentor? When did you know that you needed somebody? And how did you find the person you have today?
Over the years, when I think about the people who have helped me, they've just appeared at the right time, and potentially they've seen something in me when maybe I haven't seen that,
Mhm.
and they've just been really good at identifying that and helping me. And when I've seen that they've been helping me, I feel like I have this debt that I need to repay them. So I will work, twice as hard for that person if they've sort of shown support to me or helped guided me. And so over the years, it's been different people who have come along.
Mhm.
But if ever I've gone back to those people, they're always there for a call. And I
Yeah.
think it's the same. I kind of want to repay that debt to. That's why if anyone kind of reaches out to me, I'm always there to support people as well, because I think it's just I was given a lot of opportunity by different people over the years, and I want to do that for sort of
I
different
I,
people
lo- I
coming
love that.
out there.
I so relate to that because for me, getting my first mentor, you said it earlier. I should have done it earlier. If there's one regret I have, I don't want to call it a regret. I wish I just started earlier. Always had the feeling I wanted to do something on a greater scale. And much like you, I've four kids, they like to eat, they like to have it warm in the wintertime. It's kind of tough to start something. And I wish I would have started earlier. And I'm a big believer when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And you said this a few times, these guys just showed up and they helped me and become my mentors. What do you think is one or two of the most critical things you learned having a mentor?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think it's being patient with people and really sort of spending the time, and because there's certain things that did not come naturally
Hmm.
to me in my journey into where I am now. And I think there's parts of when you're a chef, you're all about the food and all that sort of stuff, and you're not really great with numbers or understanding the business stuff. And I was lucky that I had people who were really willing to spend the time so I would understand. And I think that's that's probably the parts that I'm appreciative of as well, I would say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you also said something. There was a few things, and I hope our listeners pick this up. And I ask them to rewind. There was a few things you said earlier, and I'm also a big believer that we all need somebody who sees in us what we don't see in ourselves. And again, that's something we are not taught as chefs, to make ourselves vulnerable and saying, "Hey, listen, guys, I need help here." And for me, I think my success was with I'm not afraid for asking for help. And there's two things I always learned very early on. If somebody gives you good advice, you take action on it today. You don't wait until tomorrow. You do something about it today. And even as we started this show, our mentor around this, his name is Chef Sean Wall, chef, who said to us he has a media company and all that stuff. Christian, you need to put this message out. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I like the way I look. I don't like the way I sound. And he says, Christian, everybody feels that way. And we had this meeting on a Thursday, and then I had to kind of look back of what I said earlier. For me, if somebody gives me great advice, I will act on it. So we got the team together on Friday. On Monday, we had the first episode up, and now we've been a little bit over 100 episode deep, and hopefully we're getting better. And I know we're getting better, and also becoming more comfortable in doing this. For me, at first, it was rough. Sound was terrible, but I have something here which always reminds me, and I show this a lot, is progress over perfection. You know, just do something and just make it happen. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Just work on it, make it better today. So, talk to us a little bit. Where do you think hospitality and leadership is going, and how should businesses prepare to be on top of that?
I think compassion is something that it's always been a fairly transient industry, and I think investing in your people more than ever is
Hmm.
something that you need to double down on,
Yep.
because the investing in the people, and I think I'm a big believer in one-on-ones, and also a reverse one-on-one, giving the team member the opportunity to give you feedback as well.
Yep.
I think it's really important. That's probably having great people, they're going to buy into the idea of what you're trying to do or change. And it's never a really, great topic to talk with staff about, cost of goods or how, we're not portioning things properly. Could be anything. But if you've got the buy-in of the team, it's always going to be so much easier. And that's why I think you've always got to start with your people, your processes and your systems in kind of that order. Start with your people, get your culture right, spend time working with them. And I think everything is just so much easier. And I saw that in my own business where I had huge turnover. I had a great mentor at the time, said, this is what you need to do, have these one-on-ones. It instantly changed. And I think by the time we sold the business, I was working so little in it because it just felt like it ran itself. And it was one of the biggest light bulb kind of moments for me. And I think really giving teams autonomy as well. If you've hired these great people, believe in them to do the job. That's probably one of the bits of feedback I had from one of my one-on-ones is that we wish you'd micromanage us a little bit more. But I just don't believe it. If I've hired great people and they've been trained to do the job and, just let them sort of go for it a little bit, give them the opportunity to shine.
Yeah, I totally agree. Give him guardrails, let him go. And as I hired Mackenzie, one of the things we always talk about, she says, hey, how do you want this to go? I was like, no, I don't. Because if I tell you what I want is, I will get what I always had. So you run with it. And, having the trust in them to do it, she understands what we want to do. And she did an amazing job so far. And I see it with a lot of businesses. If I look at businesses which are successful, the first thing comes back. They do exactly what you just said with their people. And it's one of the slogans or one of the catchphrases. People say, oh, you need to take care of your people, but very few people actually do. And I also like what you said about the whole feedback loop. Let's get honest feedback. If we need to change something, let's change something. And no hard feelings. If things don't work, let's make it collectively better. And that's also something in our industry which is not that common, because I still feel the culinary industry is a lot like the military. You don't show no fear, you don't show any emotion, you get it done, you just suck it up, and it doesn't need to be that way. So I love doing the right thing by your people. So can you share then for us a personal experience which significantly shaped how you currently approach operations?
In terms of operations, I think through, when I had my business, I think learning, that one-on-one process was something that completely shifted my perspective about how to deal with people and get the most out of people. I think, I've talked about a bit about my mentor, but seeing his interaction with people and how he got the most out of them. And it wasn't by shouting at them. It wasn't by being angry. It wasn't by being blunt. It was by being present. So I think that really shaped my focus. And I think in turning the dial in operations in general, I think if there's any big things that need to be changed, my approach is always the same. And I think it's, you start with the people, then it's the processes and the systems. It has to be that in order, because there's no point in trying to shift the dial on your cost of goods or your labor or implementing a new product if potentially your culture sucks or your people, aren't right or haven't been trained. It's really important, I think, and to do things in that order in anything in operations, and being pretty transparent also with what you're trying to do. And I think, I ran a big training session yesterday, and, I think, some of the stuff I'd said, they'd never probably heard of before, but I think it was that transparency about what we're trying to do. And, we're not a business, and, a lot, with the current economy right now, it's tough for hospitality businesses out there. So I think people just might think that, the reason why we're doing this is to make more money. No, it's not. It's to make sure that we're giving the customers a great experience, and the customers getting, the reason why we're portioning something properly is so when I come back into that restaurant, it tastes the same every time. It's not because I just want to get more money in my pocket. I want people to have that same consistent, great experience. And I think a lot is in the language and the way you communicate. And that's kind of, it's got to be a lot of buy-in from the team. It might seem like I don't want to do that. This is my idea. I know best. Yeah. But it can't be that way. It can't be that anyway. I've tried it and it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work long-term. It works short-term, but it doesn't work.
Yes.
Not scalable, not scalable.
Yes. Not
Um,
scale.
so I want to know a little bit more about you as a person. So what do you do every day? What is a habit or two you have to stay inspired and feel that? Because there's days where things just don't work out. And if you think you have a great employee, then maybe not a great employee. How do you stay motivated? How do you stay on top of the game to deliver on that vision you just share with us on a daily basis?
I definitely think, well, personally, I need to have some form of exercise in my life. If I don't have that, I am very, very scattered. And I didn't exercise yesterday, and I could tell by the end of the day that I was very scattered. So I will be definitely doing that today to feel like I'm on track. I think also seeing, different individuals, I get inspired and lifted up when I see what other people are doing
Mhm.
across the world, or even what my other friends are doing in business. And I think they're the kind of things that I kind of always look out to
Mhm.
see what other people are doing. That's what kind of lifts me up, and having calling up and having conversations with people I potentially haven't spoken to in a while in the industry. That's what something that always kind of lifts me up, and a bit of a support network amongst each other of people who are potentially at the same level as I am, or even higher.
Mhm.
And that's sort of having that network around you to
Yeah.
keep on top of things and stay motivated.
Love that. So good. So good. So talk to us a little bit. What are you working on personally to scale and become better at what you do? And what is behind the scenes going on? What do you do? And what are you currently working on to scale your business?
Yeah, I think the thing that doesn't come naturally to me at all, and I've had to do a lot of it over the years, is even sort of talking publicly, or being on social media, or any of that sort of stuff. It's just something that I've always sort of found a bit, don't want to do that. I don't want to get my face out there. I don't want to, my ideas are my ideas. And it's not that I don't want to share them, but just the fear of not being ridiculed or laughed
Mhm.
at, or what does that person know? They don't know what I'm talking about. Those sort of thoughts come with it. So, but just sort of getting comfortable with sort of being active through LinkedIn and things like Instagram, and going to events. I think that's something I'm trying to do actively to promote my business. And I think really sort of trying to find my niche. And probably the big thing with my business is that I really wanted to help people, and not just be there and tell people, hey, this is how you fix this, but I want to be there on the journey and make sure that that gets implemented. A lot of times, I think that's probably the forgotten art of
Mhm.
anything, is the implementation and the execution. I think so much thought has to go into that. So I'm really trying to sort of not work with lots and lots of clients. It's a smaller amount of clients who appreciate, that real stage gate process of anything. And there is a process and a plan to how we do everything in
Mhm.
hospitality, and working on fine tuning that, and making sure that I can, my brand is about the execution and implementation as much as the idea and the strategy. Everyone can have a great idea, but it's how you implement and execute at the end of the day that's going to
I love that.
be the stickiness factor.
Uh, so good. Absolutely love that. I know I want to be respectful of your time. I can talk to you forever. So um, tell me and our listeners, what is a final piece of advice you were giving to an inspiring, aspiring hospitality leader?
I think the thing that I always think about, that's always worked for me, is putting in for your own development.
Mhm.
It may, if there's an area of the business that maybe you like, or it's a part of your role that you don't understand, is lean into it and
Yeah.
try and understand. Speak to people in the industry, and don't be afraid to ask, silly questions. Really, kind of, you'll be amazed at where it kind of can take you. I never thought I'd be, you know, flown to the UK to stand in a chip factory, for instance, and working on developing an amazing
Mhm.
chip. There's different areas that you'll never think that you'll end up being, or the business. I think really lean into different parts, and try to understand it, because it might not feel like it's important right now, but down the track you'll meet someone and you'll be like, hey, I know how to do this, and know how to understand this, and you'll be amazed at the more things that you can add to your repertoire will I think, as I said earlier, will bring your value to the marketplace, because there's a lot of great chefs out there, a lot of way better chefs than I am. But I think where I've kind of found this niche is that I'm able to come up with a strategy and the ideation, but I can come up with the execution as well. That every single part of it along the way is because I've wanted to understand every different part. So I think put in for your own development is the best bit of advice.
Love that. Really good. Really good. So last question. What does disruptive mean to you in the hospitality industry?
Oh, that's another good question. I think it's shaking the cage a little bit and just doing things outside of the mold and forging your own path.
Love that. Very good. So before we wrap it up, if our listeners, if you haven't done so, make sure you save this episode, you like it, make sure you share it with a friend who is in the same shoes as the conversation we're having. If you also have a friend, or if you on the pivot are saying, hey, I want to start something new. What Josh just did for us, he gave us a masterclass on how to look at business differently and how to pivot and how to get it done. So with that, Josh, I really want to say thank you for being here today. Thanks for allowing us to do this. But before we wrap it up, we haven't told you, but we have a small piece, which is called rapid fire question. And so we have 30 questions here for you, for the audience to get to know a little bit more about you and what makes you tick. My team creates this new every week. So you have the latest and greatest. There's 30 questions. So the way we're going to do it, I ask you a number between 1 and 30. I read out the question and then you can answer. So you ready for that?
I'm ready.
Okay. Give me a number between 1 and 30.
28.
Pineapple on the pizza, yes or no?
Wow. I live in Australia, so that's a yes. That's a yes. That's a yes for me.
You just insulted the whole group, which feels.
I know.
Okay, question number 2, between 1 and 30.
25.
25. Ooh, what is your favorite food on a rainy day?
Oh, favorite food on a rainy day. Oh, I think a really good cassoulet, actually. That's probably it. Yeah, I think just a beautiful cassoulet and a nice glass of wine.
That's a lot of people gonna forgive you. Great answer for the pizza answer earlier.
Yeah.
Question number 3. Give me a number between 1 and 30.
22.
22. Ooh, what is your favorite way of using leftovers?
Oh, wow. I have 4 kids under the age of 6, so you'll probably be horrified when you hear what happens with some of my leftovers. But I'm very, that's probably the thing that my wife is always amazed. I really try not to have leftovers. But I try to be precise. I would say, it feels I tend to put everything in between 2 slices of bread. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be a lasagna sandwich. It can be a potato sandwich. Doesn't matter what it is. It's sort of, if I'm feeling a bit lazy, I'll put it in between some nice bread, and that's lunch or dinner.
So good. That's me. If you make a sandwich at it, it's amazing. So next question, between 1 and 30.
12.
12. Ooh, what is an ingredient which needs to go away tomorrow?
This might be controversial, but I just never. I'm going to say I'm not a big fan of melons. I don't like cantaloupe. That's just something that I really love the idea of it. I think, it looks, but every time I taste it, I'm just like, not a fan.
Yeah, you just made a whole new group upset. We have now cantaloupe ice cream and everything else. It's a whole trend. You just ruined it. Okay, last question, Chef. 1 to 30.
5.
5. Ooh, what is the best piece of culinary advice you have ever received?
I think when I was in cooking school, I always remember this from my teacher. Him saying that I can teach you a lot of things, but the one thing that I can't teach you to do is how to control heat properly on the stoves. That's something that you just need to do a bit of by feel and working that out. I think it's because once you can understand that and how heat works and transfer of that, you'll understand cooking a whole lot more.
That is awesome, because my guy told me, just don't be an idiot. I can teach you everything else. Just don't be an idiot. That was his advice to me. He said, just don't be a dumbass. Everything else I can teach you. So, Chef, thanks for being here today. Can you tell our listeners how can they get to know more about you? How can they consume your content, and where can they find you?
Yeah, no problem. So my website is www.hospocollective.com.au. You can reach me via LinkedIn, Joshua Powell, Hospo Collective, and then on my Instagram, it's Hospo Collective as well. And my personal one is Josh H. Powell as well. So reach out if you need anything.
Awesome. We really appreciate it. And to our listener, if you have done so, please save the episode. Make sure you share it with a friend and listen to it over. It was an amazing conversation today, how you can pivot your career and how you become disruptive in the industry. So with that, Chef Josh, thanks for being here today. Thanks for the gift of your time. Any final words of wisdom before we sign off?
Final words of wisdom. Don't be scared. Make the leap. Have a great support group around you, and having a great support group. Yeah.
So good. So good. With that, I want to say thank you. Until next time, remember to disrupt your kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. I'm Christian, your disruptive chef entrepreneur host. I'm signing off. So Chef Josh and I are out of here. So be the change, be the challenge, and be the chef who sets the world on fire. Until next episode, stay disruptive, everybody.